very content to keep my team here on lockdown until we get the all clear.
And talk to me a little bit about how much anxiety you and your team and everybody in Parliament Hill must be feeling at this point.
Well, it's hard to describe, but I mean, of course, I think you're feeling it too. Everybody in Ottawa is shocked.
Is it really that hard to describe? I mean, if I was in her situation, I could think of a number of different adjectives that I would use to describe the fear and anxiety if a active shooter were roaming around my place of work, but apparently she's at a loss for words.
I was in Centre Block first thing this morning. I was there before 7 in the morning and left at about 9:15 to come to Confederation Building, where my office is, for some other meetings. So I have to say, I initially, the first report of the shooting, and now we know the tragic killing of the soldier at the War Memorial, that first piece of information came to us, as it would to anybody, through news reports and Twitter.
Now, keep in mind that the time it took for the shooter to get from the War Memorial to the Parliament buildings was probably less than a minute. So she's meaning to tell everybody on the news here that within that period of time, let's just give it 2 minutes just to be on the extra safe side. She's meaning to tell everyone that in those 2 minutes between when the shooter shot the person at the War Memorial to when he actually got to the Parliament building, she had enough time to hear news reports and tweets about this, which is something else I find a little bit difficult to believe.
And so on. And then when I saw the reports that people believed the gunman had entered Centre Block, I have to tell you, I didn't believe it, because the security at Centre Block is quite significant. It's beefed up over the years. I used to work on Parliament Hill in the 80s when I was with the Minister of Environment's office, and you didn't have metal detectors at the doors, and people could drive up easily. It's become a much more secure location, and I'm really shocked that a man running, carrying a shotgun was able to gain entry, much less that they went in, I gather, through a first floor entry, and made their way all the way up to the second floor and within feet of where the Conservative caucus was gathered in their meeting.
Laurie Graham is downtown with a member of the NDP caucus who was obviously in the other group. Laurie, why don't you take it from here?
Hey, thanks, Kevin. I'm with Charlie Angus, who is a well-known NDP MP here on the Hill, and certainly outspoken, always, holding the government to account. But today you were inside, I gather, trying to calm your colleagues. What happened initially when you were inside that caucus room?
Well, we were in right off the main Hall of Honor where all the shooting took place. You go in one door and you're in the Prime Minister's caucus with the Conservatives. You go in the other door, the other side of the hall, it's in the Democrats. So around 10 o'clock this morning, we heard a whole series of gunfire, and we knew it was outside the door. At that point, we had no idea what the situation was, but we looked at this door and thought, this door will not stop a gunman. So we quickly moved, tried to put tables up, got people down on the ground. None of us have ever done this. All we can think of is stories of Columbine. Get down, if a shooter gets in, we had no idea. So it was very, very, very tense. Tried to make sure everybody tried to be as calm as possible. Then security came in one of the back doors and said, we got to get you out.
So I do find it slightly odd here, or at least worthy of a little bit more research, that this person decided, instead of leaving out what it sounds like there was numerous other doors and exits, as he said, that people came in them to try to get them out. So there were additional doors that he could leave out of. But instead of doing that, they decided to try to barricade themselves with a bunch of flimsy-ass wooden tables. So I don't know about that. If there was a shooter that I could tell, as he said, was right outside one door and there were other doors, you can bet your bottom fucking dollar that I would be trying to exit via those other doors. Just saying.
We saw from the look on their face that we were in a very, very serious situation.
And when you had to get out, Megan Leslie has already talked to Kevin Newman, who's hosting our show here, and said that people got separated. So I gather you went with one group. Where did you go?
We all tried to leave together, but in the I can't remember everything that happened, but.
Why is it exactly that you can't remember everything that happened less than an hour ago? That's a little bit questionable, don't you guys think? Slightly odd.
Again, there's a surrealness. This is a place we feel comfortable, we feel at home, but realized we may still be in a situation, there may still be a gunman, so we tried to keep our group together. Finally got ourselves over to Spark Street, and they opened up the door into the promenade, and we've been locked down in that room until just a few minutes ago.
Take me back to the room initially when you said you heard shots. So you knew, in fact, that was the sound of a gun. How many shots did you hear?
There was a whole series of rapid-fire bangs. So we got down. At first, of course, people were, what is it? But you knew what it was. As we were down on the ground, there seemed to be a period of silence, and I'm going from memory, so memories get screwed up in the fog, but it seemed then there was a second batch of gunfire. Then we knew this is now a very, very serious situation. We didn't know if there was one gunman, two gunmen, we didn't know where they were, but we knew that they were on the other side of that door.
And inside that room, when all of you were there, you're saying you're putting tables up and getting down. What are any of you screaming? What is the mood like at that point? It must have been terrifying.
Well, it's really, because we came through Jack's death, we're very close to each other. We look out for each other, very physical with each other. I think people comforted each other, people who were nervous. The real concern was we had 3 young MPs who have children. I think Lisanne Lamont's child might have been in the room, but we had 2 other MPs who were separated from their children, and they were not going to leave. I mean, any mother out there, would you leave? Being told to leave the building if your child is still in the building with the shooter. So security had to deal with that, and I know I was with one.
And you remember as well as anybody does that after the 9/11 attacks, you couldn't get anywhere near the White House for many, many years. There was a perimeter put around public buildings in Washington permanently, and they've eased them a little bit in the last couple of years. Is that what we're heading toward, do you think? And should we be?
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to say that the House of Commons will be an armed camp. I don't think it will be. But I think that we will see much broader and deeper security, much of it hidden away. The public may not notice. But there certainly will be armed, all of the security officers on both the Senate side and the House of Commons side will all be armed, and I think very quickly. Most of all, I think that the killing of the soldier in Quebec and the events today are kind of the end of innocence for Canada in terms of global terrorism. We always thought it was far away, it wasn't anything that would touch us. Well, it's touched us now, and this is something that's going to be with us now forever.
There is a happy middle ground, and we're not going to find this middle ground over the next week or 2 or 3. We first of all need to have all the facts and whether or not something could have been done. I'll give you for instance. I think one of the lessons learned from today, and it doesn't require a scientist to arrive at that, we will need better perimeter security. We need to be able to identify somebody who's a threat, somebody who carries a weapon, before that person happens to be right at your doorway. Because at the moment, even if the House security had been able to stop him, there were other members of the public present, and it presents a threat, not only to themselves, but to other members of the public itself. So we have to back off a bit, and there may be some restriction as to access, unimpeded access, as you get closer to Parliament itself, so that either mechanically or by some other means we can detect if somebody carries a weapon and we can intercept that person. So in other words, there are some security devices and security people hundreds of yards before Parliament before we can do that. There will be other measures that can be taken inside Parliament to make sure if somebody were to breach that particular security perimeter, we can stop him or her, get on the track if they carry a weapon or carry an explosive. All of these weapons and tools are available now. Is how much do we want to ramp up, and how much freedom and the perception of freedom do we want to lose?
This obviously will shift a lot of the political calculations in a city like Ottawa over the next little while, and the government's determination to bring in some changes. I would think that it has on the books for some time.